You are listening Greet Your Use in podcast. Now streaming The Godfather, collected by the brothers Grimm, featuring filmmaker Hyuri Constancio as our guest storyteller. Let's roll it now.
The Godfather by the brothers Grimm. A poor man had so many children that he had already asked everyone in the world to be godfather. And when still another child was born, no one else was left to whom he could invite. He knew not what to do, and in his perplexity, he laid down and fell asleep. Then he dreamt that he was to go outside the gate and ask the first person who met him to be godfather. When he awoke, he determined to obey his dream and went outside the gate and asked the first person who came up to him to be godfather. The stranger presented him with a little glass of water and said,
"This is a wonderful water. With it, you can heal the sick. Only you must see where death is standing. If he is standing by the patient's head, give the patient some of the water, and he will be healed. But if death is standing by his feet, all trouble will be in vain, for the sick man must die."
From this time forth, the man could always say whether a patient could be saved or not, and he became famous for his skill and earned a great deal of money. Once he was called into the child of the king, and when he entered, he saw death standing by the child's head and cured it with the water. And he did the same a second time, but the third time, death was standing by its feet, and then he knew the child was forced to die. Once, the man thought he would visit the godfather and tell him how he had succeeded with the water. But when he entered the house, it was such a strange establishment. On the first flight of stairs, the broom and the shovel were disputing and knocking each other about violently. He asked them,
"Where does the godfather live?"
The broom replied,
"One flight of stairs higher up."
When he came to the second flight, he saw a heap of dead fingers lying. He asked,
"Where does the godfather live?"
One of the fingers replied, "One flight of stairs higher." On the third flight lay a heap of dead heads, which again directed him to the flight beyond. On the fourth flight, he saw fishes on the fire, which frizzled in the pans and baked themselves. They too said, "One flight of stairs higher." And when he had ascended the fifth, he came to the door of a room and peeped through the keyhole, and there he saw the godfather, who had a pair of long horns. When he opened the door and went in, the godfather got into the bed in a great hurry and covered himself up. Then said the man, "Sir Godfather, what a strange household you have. When I came to your first flight of stairs, the shovel and the broom were quarreling and beating each other violently."
"How stupid you are! That was the boy and the maid talking to each other,"
said the godfather. "But on the second flight, I saw dead fingers lying."
"Oh, how silly you are! Those were some roots of scorsonera."
On the third flight lay a heap of dead men's heads.
"Foolish man, those were cabbages."
On the fourth flight, I saw fishes in a pan which were hissing and baking themselves.
When he had said that, the fishes came and served themselves up.
And when I got to the fifth flight, I peeped through the keyhole of a door, and there, Godfather, I saw you, and you had long, long horns.
"Oh, that's a lie."
The man became alarmed and ran out. And if he had not, who knows what the godfather would have done to him.
Hey, this was The Godfather, collected by the brothers Grimm, featuring filmmaker Hyuri Constancio as our guest storyteller. If you like this episode, if you love the show, make sure you subscribe us on the platform you are listening. Create Your Year Starting Podcast is now available on 50 plus platforms. Also, make sure you do place the reviews and ratings for this show, because your reviews and ratings are really valuable. You can rate this show on Spotify and you can review this show on Apple Podcast. Also, you can DM us on Instagram at @podcastaudios and mention your reviews. Now, here's a treat for you. This is the new thing that we are doing with our show. Create Your Years Podcast is now doing story plus interview on the show. Here's the interview with our guest storyteller Hyuri Constancio on Create Your Years Podcast. Here we go.
Hello, Yuri. How are you? How are you doing?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So this is a kind of new thing for our show, Create Your Years Podcast, where we first just used to invite guests as a guest storytellers, and that was the part. Now in 2022, I'm going with some new inventions where people can also know more about the guests. So now, please introduce yourself to our audience. Please tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Yuri Constancio. I'm a director and writer living in Ilhabela, small island in Brazil.
Okay.
But I came actually from an unlikely place. I came from almost extreme poverty. You wouldn't believe that I would end up making films.
Oh.
But yeah, very, very low, income, like no electricity, no cooking gas in the house. We used candles to light the house at night. My mom cooked with alcohol in a tin can, and that level of poverty.
Oh.
And yeah, use even planted vegetables at some part of the year. So it was quite a challenge getting to where I am in terms of becoming a director and writer.
Mhm.
Yeah, lots of things happen in between. I didn't go to kindergarten, for example, so I did a lot of sports as a kid. I managed to be a kid. I was featured in a surf magazine when I was 4 years old. I did swimming and jiu-jitsu and capoeira. I could really explore a whole lot more in the world before, getting stuck in a classroom with a bunch of screaming kids.
Okay. Okay. Oh wow. So this is kind of a hooking story, This is kind of interesting, and this just intro that hooked a lot of audience right there. Your grandfather, uh tell us more about it. You told me that he was a sculptor, right? So please tell us more about it.
Yeah, so I actually didn't get to meet him actually. Um, and I'm not sure exactly how his career unfolded, but
Mm.
but yes, I know he got his work featured in a gallery in Spain. He did some more abstract kind of work,
Okay.
like some lines
Oh.
holding inside of themselves. Yeah. So, and I think there's also a bigger sculpture of him placed in a neighborhood in São Paulo.
Mhm.
But I was exposed to his work in my grandmother's house. She had a bunch of them. My
Okay.
father was into drawing, and I
Mhm.
grew up drawing as well. That was a hobby of mine. I have a bunch of drawings
Okay.
in my archives. But what really got me into filmmaking, I think, was we got our first TV at some point.
Okay.
Finally, an old TV, and we could watch movies in
Mm.
public TV. And so I was fixated on movies. My mom was fixated on movies. She was a fan of horror movies as well. I was exposed to that quite a lot. My first favorite movie was Hitchcock's Psycho, for example. But I got access to those movies. And then later I got access to DVDs, and I watched a lot of BTS behind the scenes. And I was really into I really wanted to know how movies were made. I'm very curious about that.
Yeah.
And I became very involved. But I because of poverty, I couldn't get even close to a camera until I was 16, like just close to a camera, seeing one in front of me. So I never managed to actually make films, even though I really wanted to learn how to make films. But yeah, I did one school project with classmates about the environment.
Okay.
And that we got that screening, that video screening of yeah, environmental issues in the city. We got the
Hmm.
video screening. A guy in the audience came to me later and said, "Hey, we're doing a course on
Okay.
basic camera operating and editing
Yeah.
in Premiere Pro. You want to go and check it out? I really liked your video." I said, "Sure." And so yeah, I did the course. I then edited. I was offered to edit a documentary for them. I did well
Hmm.
in the course, so I
Hmm.
did a documentary. I met a guy, and then we did short films together. A guy was working a short film, and
Okay.
I said, "Hey, I know some visual effects. I was studying at home at that point, and so that's how I started. Just doing a
Okay.
short film with a friend of mine. So
Oh, that's awesome. That's
yeah,
awesome. Now, I've
yeah,
seen your projects, uh,
yeah.
that you were involved in a lot of projects, and they were actually for big productions. How does those projects happen to you?
Yeah, so I did the school project about the environment. I was invited to that course,
Mhm.
and I met this friend of mine that he was working on a short film, and we were talking about visual effects. And I said, "Hey, I I studied some visual effects at home,
Mm.
on my old computer, and I've never done any projects, but we could do." Started thinking about some visual effects. So we did that. I did the visual effects and the 3D animation for his short film. It was really crappy, really tight, but yeah, we managed. And then I did a few. We did a few more projects together. Um, yeah, one of them being a YouTube channel, for example, called Ugile Abella, the
Okay.
Ugile Abella Guide, which is became the biggest and still is actually the biggest YouTube channel about the island that I live in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even though we stopped after posting only 5 videos. And the idea
Okay.
was to really practice filmmaking, get better, refine our craft, and so on, until we actually made our short films. But then, um, yeah, I worked on a few more projects. Um, people offered me some editing, very small jobs, sometimes for friends and so on. And all the while, I was learning and practicing at home,
Hmm.
um, finding some tutorials and reading and learning as much as I could. And then I got the chance of working in a Discovery Channel show called the
Yeah.
Treasure Quest Snake Island. Yeah, and I was the media manager in that production.
Okay.
I was by an LA company, and I was responsible for basically the footage and the audio files getting out of the cameras and recorders and being transferring them safely to the servers in LA. So all in between was my responsibility. But yeah, it was very fast moving actually. Um, no room for mistakes, so that was quite an interesting
Yes.
experience.
Yes. Yes.
Um, yeah, and you can't stop in that production. Lots of the money is flowing fast, and I actually
Hmm.
developed a program in Python to yeah to really handle one task that he asked for. It would take days, and I said I can't do that. I made the program. It took seconds to execute the what they asked for. They were
Yes. Yes.
impressed, really
Hmm.
impressed. I got promoted within the first few weeks. Yeah, and I remember even the cast coming to me and say, "Hey man, I heard about you.
Hmm.
Congratulations." Yeah, but
Wow.
after that, yeah, I did some other things. I did some writing in a small production company in São Paulo. Worked for a biggish YouTube channel, as an editor. Yeah, worked for foundations.
That was a pretty wonderful work that you did. That's really inspiring. Starting from nowhere to actually get into some kind of a production, which comes from LA, and then actually creating something kind of a, a good portfolio for you, that you actually gets promoted. You solve the problem, and then you actually gets recognized for your work, and then you get promoted. The journey, that journey is really inspiring, and that journey also defines you as an artist, as a filmmaker, and how passionate and how perseverous you are for that particular work. That When I was reading your work, I was really fascinated about, wow, this guy has done really amazing work. You have made a film, a short film, which you completely shot on the mobile device, on the phone, not using any kind of camera and all that. So how did you do that? And why did you made this film?
Yeah, tissue. So yeah,
Yeah, the name
tissue.
of the film is The Tissue.
I was working some stories behind the scenes, and I said to myself, okay, I'll finish those stories. I'll write the scripts, and then I'll make my debut as a director
Okay.
and writer.
Mhm.
But it took so long. So I was years into developing that story, and I had not even started writing a script. So I got tired of it, and I was working on editing, which was not really my thing. So I said, I'll just do it. I'll just grab my
Yes.
phone. And by the way, I didn't have a camera. I was
Yeah.
still, I didn't come from poverty and straight into wealth. No, I was still a little, slowly going up,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a camera. I bought this phone that had a decent camera, and
Mhm.
I realized, hey, I can actually make a film now. I have a little
Yeah.
decent
Yeah.
camera
Yeah. Yeah.
on my phone, and so I said, I'll just do it. Forget about those stories. Forget about the scripts. I'll just grab my phone, think about a little story that
Mm.
can happen in one scene or one tiny little house, and I'll just do it. And that's what I did. In 1 week, I thought about shots. I walked around the house, the apartment, and looked around and said, okay, maybe I could get a shot at this door. Maybe I can get the protagonist walking here, and I can push in, or yeah, pull out. And then it started emerging. I asked my sister, hey, want to star in my movie? And she said, sure. Yeah. And we did it, and my mom came along later, and she was very excited about the film. Yeah, offering to help all the time. And I was like, hey, how about the villain,
Okay. Oh
the
wow.
monster? Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. So when you were shooting this film, what kind of tools do you use to actually make this?
Tools, yeah. Well, I used, okay, so here's the list. I used Windows Notepad for writing my notes.
Okay.
I shot on my phone. It was a Samsung Galaxy J7 Metal. It's a 2016 phone.
Okay.
With the Filmic Pro app, I used a Benro KH25 tripod that I had bought some years prior. I used a piece of wood I found in the neighborhood, together with a piece of cloth. Yeah, so I could
Okay.
slide my tripod in smooth surface to do the dolly shots. Yeah, I used Motive Audio from Shure Plus. It's a recording. Yeah, it's a very interesting recording piece of software. It allows you to record uncompressed wave files. So I record all the sounds you hear, the Foley. I recorded with that app on my phone. So the sound was also recorded with my phone. I use Premiere Pro for editing and basic mixing, Reaper for music and sound effects, Vordio to export the sequences to Reaper from the editing software. Yeah, freesound.org, Soundly for sound effects, Epidemic Sound for music, Film Convert for color correction and grading. I use a little bit of Blender for recreating one shot digitally,
Okay.
and some free VST plugins that you can find online. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
mostly with free stuff, that you can
Get
find
it.
online.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Okay. So how long did it take to you actually complete the whole film from start to the end? Right from the starting, writing, thinking, and then completing the whole film and releasing it.
Yeah. So I had the idea, I think, October of 2018.
Okay.
So I didn't write a script. So I just, in 1 week, I thought about the shots, and I had to stop in the third day of shooting because I a health issue and I was spitting a lot of blood. So I had to stop for a while. But then I got back and I edited in my free time. I shot a few pickups here and there, got ill again, edited some more in my free time. And in the end, I finished in May of 2020. Yeah.
Okay.
Then I actually got the film through a few film festivals. I worked on the behind the scenes, and I released the film and the behind the scenes in the end of last year,
End of
2021.
December, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a long journey, like 3 years. When you were making this film, you completed, you released, everything happened. What did you learn from this film, The Tissue?
Yeah, a lot of things. A lot of things. It was also not only about making this film. It was not only about showing my potential as a director, saying, "Hey, this is me as a director," because people knew me as an editor and a writer, but also it was also a thing of learning, making mistakes, failing fast, and learning all the lessons of your first film, and also getting the confidence to make my next proper film, a more elaborate film. So, but one thing in particular, the biggest thing for me, I remember it was about the stabbing scene. So yeah, spoiler, the protagonist gets stabbed to death. And so the stabbing scene, so there was no script, as I told you, but a lot of the film, at least I made a shot list for this, for the moments, except for the stabbing moment.
Yeah.
I just wrote stabbing happens in my list. So my plan was to figure out in the moment, on the day, on the spot, with the camera and the actor.
Yeah.
So I did. And I got to the editing. And it was just a big, giant mess. It was just not working. It was just not working. I was like, holy cow, man. I screwed with this. It was not cutting together at all. It was very confusing and feeling random. So I had to take a step back and think about it. Why is it not working? And I looked back on one scene that I knew worked. It was for my very first favorite film, as I said, as a 3-year-old. It was Hitchcock's Psycho.
Yeah.
And the stabbing scene in that movie made a mark on me. And it still works to this day. So I asked myself, why is it working? Just like in my film, the knife never touches the victim. That was one of the things.
Yeah.
Never touch on camera. But why is it working? And why isn't mine working? So I thought about it until I realized the stabbing moment is not just stabbing. There is a story to it.
Yeah.
There is a beginning, a middle, and an end to that stabbing. In Psycho, the beginning is she's caught by surprise and is overwhelmed by the attack. The middle is she tries to fight back, trying to grab the attacker and stop him.
Yeah.
And the end is because she's caught by surprise and in a disadvantageous position, and she got stabbed several times and is weak. She loses the battle and is overtaken by the attacker, who finishes the job. When I realized that's the story in that stabbing, a light bulb went on in my head, and I knew exactly how to edit my scene. I knew what to look for.
Yeah.
I mean, my movie is not Psycho, so I can't make what Hitchcock did.
Yeah.
It's not the same story, but I knew I had to find a story in my footage, my footage. And I did, and that's how I managed to solve the problem. And that's the result you see in the movie. So that was the biggest takeaway for me. Everything has a story. Every moment has a story, beginning, a middle, and end. And you have to be paying attention to that, to take care of that.
True. The question here comes is, you were in the editing part. You were writing things. Now, what made you decide to actually become a director for a short film? What was that click and that spark that made you that no, I want to direct something? Because everything is professional in this filmmaking business. Editor are specific editors, people are writing are specific writers, but there are people who have multiple skills. And this actually you were writing and editing, that were you doing for a long time. But now as a director, to step in the field of actually directing the film, what was that? What happened? What struck?
Yeah, I never like wanted to be a director. I never thought
Okay.
about that. Yeah, I initially, but I was watching behind the scenes video. I was just curious about the filmmaking process, and I
Mm,
came across this. I remember coming across this website called the Magic of Visual Effects in Brazil, and just learning about the visual effects. So I got into doing visual effects, and so every step of the moment, I got fascinated by one step of the process. So for years, I was fascinated with editing and learning all the details from the masters,
mm,
consuming everything I could from big editors, and also from cinematographers for a few years. I shot a documentary as a director of
yeah.
photography. So yeah, a bunch of things. I was just very interested in the whole process, but I never really wanted to be an editor or a cinematographer, but I never thought about being a director. But I realized at some point two things. First of all, I realized I like the whole process.
Yeah.
I'm not just into one single thing,
One single
and
thing.
I also, yeah, and I also am very much about the big ideas, the big picture, and the message and the telling story. As I said, I was a storyteller from the beginning. And a second thing that happens was I actually wanted to be an inventor when I was a kid. I wanted to,
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to make the world a better place and change the world, invent technologies that make life better for everybody, improved our systems. But I realized that changing the world is very difficult, and and
Uh,
you need a lot of help. Even if you say, hey, I actually want to do it, I want to dedicate my life to change the world, you
mm,
actually need a lot of support and a lot of people who believe, who understands the vision, and who believe and want to support you. If people don't think there is a plan, or they don't think there is a problem in the first place. So I realized I have to be a director,
yeah.
because the most important thing for me is getting the message across. The most important thing for me is telling these stories and sharing my perspectives. Um, and yeah, talking about these issues in a cinematic way. I had to do it, and I also was writing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I realized, hey, I had a bunch of stories, a bunch of ideas. So the writing thing actually comes from a necessity.
Yeah.
I wish someone else would write the stories for me in scripts. It's a painful process writing.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Most of
know.
the
I know.
time, yeah. So I that's why I say I'm a director first, because I
Mm,
think that's how I see it. I see the big picture. That's what I care most about: the ideas and perspectives, and how to show certain things in certain ways in telling stories. So
yes.
that was a turning point for me.
Okay. 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 That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, when I talk about you, when you complete the movie, when you create the movie, or when you start something, when you pick up the pen, when you sit on the chair, when you decide to be or write something, what accomplishment do you get when you actually step up in this field? When you complete or make or do something, what accomplishment do you feel after doing that?
I mean, with my first short film, Tissue, it was the accomplishment of um, like just making a film from start to finish, and like confirming that yes, this is what I want to do. This is what
Yeah.
I should be doing. Um, Confirming that, because I had doubts at first. I was like, oh, what if I don't? I'm in the middle of the movie. I don't know how to put the beginning, the middle, and the end
Yeah.
together.
Yes, yes,
Maybe
yes. I remember. I've
I'm
been.
lost. Yeah, so confirming my intuition, because I had the intuitions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought I had, and then I confirmed it, and that was yeah, a good feeling of accomplishment in that way. Yeah, but more than anything, I think for me, movies, it's about the stories, you know.
Yeah.
Movies for me are about making you feel deeply and
Yep.
think deeply, you know. And it's about putting you through an intense journey through things you've never felt and thought about before.
Yes.
It's meaningful, has to be meaningful, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, I will be successful and I will feel accomplished if people are clinging onto the edges of their seats, you know, as if their
Yeah.
lives depended on the outcome of that movie, you
Yes.
know.
Yes. Yes.
And also if they come out of the movie thinking, wow, I never thought about that before. I never thought about
Oh.
this in that way before, you know. That to me is the goal. I like movies that where you come out, you keep thinking about them, and
Mm.
you're not quite sure exactly what certain things mean, but they resonate with you, and you go like, wow, I've never seen this thing in this way before. So yeah,
Yep. Got it. Got it.
I'll be
Wow.
happy.
That's amazing thought. That keeping it unpredictable, uh, thinking in a different way. Uh, yeah. I love that point of view of yours. Any advice you'd like to give the upcoming directors, the one who are listening, the one who want to be? Any advice you want to give to them?
Yeah, they're just starting. Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I think for me, my understanding was that I think you have to have something to say. My
Mm.
experience was I had something to say. And that's why I knew I had to. The only way to say it was through the cinematic experience. You know, so is this really? Do you need it? Do you have something to say badly? Something unique to contribute to the world? Something that's important to you, and it's screaming within yourself to come out. You know, so yeah, for that, first you need to find what that is and understand yourself.
Mm.
Uh, who are you? Who you want to be in this crazy world? And that takes some time. You know, our prefrontal cortex, talking about behavior, our prefrontal cortex, this area of the brain that really makes us human,
Yes.
reason part, that
Mm.
only matures around age 25 on average.
Okay.
So yeah, at 25. Some people even more, you know, even
Okay.
later. Yeah. So yeah, so it takes a while. Don't freak out, you know, if you're still unsure. Just keep going. To me, yeah, you have to also be open to studying, to learning. There are a lot of smart people out there, I think, who overestimate their intelligence,
Mm.
who trust their gut feelings too much, and that prevents them from learning, you know, and they end up sabotaging themselves in their own
Oh.
progress. So I think it's important to keep learning. That's really what got me out of poverty. That's really what got me out of, getting stuck. And I got stuck quite a lot in the past. I didn't know
Mm.
what to do in writing. You know, at the beginning, my first script, I had no idea what I was doing,
Yeah.
and it was terrible. But then, as I kept learning and being humble about understanding that I was not there yet, I
Yep.
kept learning and learning and learning. And now I feel much more confident when I sit in front of the computer to write, for example, and also to direct. Yeah, but we're never ending students. But
Yes. That's
with
true.
all of that out of the way, I would just say one thing, and we touched on this before. You touched on this. Just make a damn movie.
Yeah.
That's my biggest advice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
like what I did, you know, just do it. Don't wait for anyone to come and hand you an opportunity, because that's not going to happen. Don't wait for the perfect this or perfect that, you know, because you want your movie to be perfect. I know that. I've been there. No, just grab whatever camera you have available and do it. You know, come up with a story, bring your friends together, and make a movie. That's the only way to evolve as a director. Really, really. No film school will give any of that. It's just making movies. Making movies will give you that. Film school maybe will help you, exposing you to more concepts quicker, you know, accelerating that. But only you making movies will really give you
Yes.
this.
Yeah.
And this industry, the film industry, it's difficult because we have a catch-22 situation. To show what you can do, you
Mm.
need an opportunity to make a movie. But no one will give you an opportunity to make a movie unless you have already made a movie and proven that you can do it. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you just have to go and do it yourself.
yeah,
That's why I made tissue.
yeah.
It's a highly competitive industry. So just go make a movie. One thing I like that also that James Cameron said. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll borrow from them. He said, the big director James Cameron.
Yep, yep, yep. I know.
Yeah, you want to be a director. Don't try to be a director. Be a director. The moment you make a movie and you have your
Yeah,
name in the credits as the director in the credits, you are a director. Anything after that is just negotiating budget and your fee. I really
yeah,
like that. Yeah, just go make a
yeah.
movie. Put your
Exactly.
name on that movie, and now you're a director, man.
Talking about directors, Hollywood directors. Now, what's your goal to get into Hollywood and be the Hollywood director?
Yeah, yeah. Well, oh yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice.
Yep,
That's a goal. That's an interesting goal. Yeah,
yep,
I would like to make those big movies for sure. But ultimately, I want to make, hopefully, and I think every director wants that. But got to aim high.
yep,
I want to make the movies I want to make. These stories that I briefly mentioned, about a positive future and how things could be,
yeah.
and exploring human behavior. Have lots of ideas for feature films on that and
Hmm.
TV series. But I'm not in an easy position.
Yep,
To go to Hollywood, coming
yep.
from poverty. In fact, I'm in a terrible position. But I'll keep going. I'll keep going. And if no one sees my potential, no producer, no studio, no one sees that and give me a helping hand, I'll get there by myself. I'll keep making movies. I'll keep working on my craft. And to me, it's not a question of if, but when. I've determined. I'm absolutely committed to becoming a director, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. As a professional, as an
Yes, yes.
artist. Like,
After tissue, what's next for you? Are you working on something? Is there going something in the writing? Or you're writing a screenplay for any project? What's coming up next?
yeah, I am writing right now. I'm writing two short films.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bunch of ideas brewing in the background all the time for short films, feature films, TV series. But my focus right now is on writing these two short films.
Okay.
One it will be about 10 minutes long, and is about a man. I'll give you the log line. It's about a man who finds his daily life
Mm-hmm.
repeatedly disrupted by a mysterious, horrible smell he can't locate. So it's a little vague. There is much more into the script, but
Okay.
that's basically the idea. This guy kind of lost, specific details. It's more of an
Universe. Okay. Okay.
universal
Okay.
themes, of behavior and certain things.
Ah.
You
Okay.
will see a lot in the scenes, the actual scenes, which
Okay.
plot behaviors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. 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 Please mention your social media handles: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Discord, or any other handles that you use and want people to know more about you, explore more about you. Where can they connect? Please mention.
Yeah. Okay. So youtube.com/Hyuri Constancio. No accents altogether.
Okay.
Hyuri. Yuri. That's the main point of contact. I
Okay.
also have Instagram. It's if you want to get in touch, it's
Yeah.
Instagram.com/Yuri.Constancio.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook is also Yuri.Constancio. And Twitter is Yuri Constancio, no dot.
Okay. Okay. To all the listeners, this all information about this links and all also will be mentioned in the description of this particular episode, where you can connect with our filmmaker director Yuri Constancio. Yep, Yuri, thank you so much for your time. I wish you all the best, and I hope to collaborate with you soon, or if we find any kind of opportunities in future. And then yes, the link of the tissue, the film that you made, is also mentioned in the description, so people can just go check the description and watch the film. Yeah, thank you for being on the show, and thank you for being the guest on the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It was very enjoyable.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this story. If you like this story, if you like the show, please make sure you follow us on Spotify and the platforms you're listening to. Make sure you place a review and ratings so that we are motivated with 100x. Thank you so much. Stay tuned, stay safe.